The summer sun was bright over London, making the white stone of Buckingham Palace almost glow. Tourists from all over the world stood outside the black and gold gates, snapping pictures, pointing at the tall guards in their bright red uniforms and tall black bearskin hats. Among the crowd was Liam, a young man from Australia, visiting the city for the first time. He had read countless travel blogs about London, and one thing kept coming up: the royal guards. Everyone said they never smiled, never spoke, and never moved no matter what happened around them. To Liam, it sounded like a challenge. He was traveling with 3 of his friends, and they were already in a playful mood after visiting some nearby shops. "Come on," Liam said, grinning. "I've seen so many videos of people trying to make these guys laugh. Let's see if it's really impossible." His friends chuckled, already pulling out their phones. The idea of catching something funny on video was too tempting. The guards stood in perfect stillness outside their posts, their eyes locked straight ahead, their bodies completely motionless. Liam was fascinated by how much discipline it must take to stay like that for hours. But instead of feeling respect, he felt a rush of mischief. "Bet I can make him blink," he said, walking toward one of the guards. The man he chose stood, tall, his face completely serious, rifle resting on his shoulder. The crowd around them moved slowly, many keeping a respectful distance. A family from Spain took a photo a few feet away, smiling politely before stepping back. But Liam wasn't thinking about politeness. He was thinking about making a video that his friends would remember forever. He stepped closer than most people dared, leaning in just enough so his face was a couple of feet away from the guards. "Hello there," he whispered, as if expecting a secret reply. Of course, there was none. The guard didn't flinch. Liam pulled a funny face, crossing his eyes and sticking out his tongue. His friends laughed from behind their phones, encouraging him. Around them, a few tourists frowned. An older woman shook her head slightly, muttering something about respect. But Liam didn't notice. He took a step to the side, moving directly into the guard's line of vision, trying to block the view of the palace. Still no reaction. "Wow, he's good," Liam said loudly, making sure the camera caught his voice. "It's like he's not even human." The guard stood like a statue, the bright red of his coat standing out against the pale walls of the palace. Liam circled around him slowly, making exaggerated marching steps like a cartoon soldier. He waved his arms in the air, pretending to mimic the guard's stiff stance. The laughter from his friends grew louder, and the sound attracted more people. From the crowd, soon a small group had formed, some curious, others clearly uncomfortable. A couple of children pointed at Liam, giggling while their parents quickly pulled them back, not wanting to get involved. A man wearing a London tour guide badge approached the edge of the group and said in a low voice, "You should step back, mate. They don't take kindly to this." But Liam brushed it off with a laugh. The more attention he got, the bolder he became. "Let's see if we can get him to at least look at me," he told his friends. He moved even closer, leaning forward, as if studying the guard's face. "Not a blink," Liam commented. Maybe he's actually a robot. His friends were now filming from different angles, thinking they were capturing comedy gold. What Liam didn't notice was a palace security officer standing a short distance away, watching him closely. The officer didn't interfere yet, but his eyes were locked on the scene, ready to step in if needed. The tourists who were aware of the rules were starting to shift uncomfortably, sensing that Liam was testing boundaries he shouldn't. Despite the uneasy energy in the air, Liam kept going. He waved his hand slowly in front of the guard's face, his palm just inches away. It didn't touch him, but it was close enough to be a clear breach of the respectful distance visitors were supposed to keep in his mind. It was harmless fun, a joke for the internet. In reality, it was exactly the kind of behavior that could get someone in trouble. The guard remained unshaken, his jaw firm, his gaze locked straight ahead. Liam stepped back for a moment, looking at his friends with a triumphant grin. "See? I told you, nothing rattles them." Thought the game was his to win. That the guard's silence was proof of victory. But a few people in the crowd exchanged knowing looks, as if they could feel what was about to happen. One man, wearing a Union Jack t-shirt, whispered to his companion, "Give it a second. He's gone too far now." The companion nodded, eyes fixed on Liam, waiting for the moment when things would change. For now, Liam was still the center of his own little show. He stretched his arms out, mockingly presenting the guard to the crowd like an exhibit. "Ladies and gentlemen, the world's most patient man." His voice echoed lightly across the open space. He had no idea that the patience he was joking about had limits, and he was about to find them. The guard's hands remained firmly on his rifle, his posture unbroken, but there was a faint shift in his stance, subtle enough that only a trained eye might notice. The palace security officer, standing nearby, saw it instantly. This was the signal that the guard was preparing to act. Liam, still oblivious, leaned forward once more, his face filled with mock curiosity. The sun glinted off the polished metal parts of the guard's weapon. The air felt heavier now, as if the very atmosphere around the palace had changed. A few people in the crowd took a step back without realizing why. The moment hung in the air, tense and unspoken. Liam was about to learn that the royal guards weren't there for amusement. They were soldiers on duty, guarding one of the most important sites in the country. He thought he was in control of the moment, but the truth was, the moment was about to take control of him, and though he didn't know it yet, the laughter from his friends would soon turn into stunned silence. Liam stepped back for just a second, rubbing his chin like a stage performer thinking about his next move. The crowd around him was larger now. Some people had their phones up, filming every moment. Others were watching with folded arms, their expressions more serious. Few even whispered to each other, clearly unsure whether to laugh or call it out. But Liam wasn't thinking about the mixed reactions. In his mind, the lack of any response from the guard meant one thing: he could keep going. His friends, still holding their phones high, urged him on. "Go on, mate. You're almost there," one of them said. The sound of their voices encouraged him like cheers in a small stadium. Liam took a deep breath, deciding to up the game. He took 2 slow steps toward the guard, the tips of his shoes now almost touching the invisible line that separated tourists from the soldiers' space. He leaned in just enough so the brim of his baseball cap nearly lined up with the bottom of the guard's bearskin hat. "Hey," Liam whispered, dragging the word out as if trying to break the silence. Still, the guard's gaze was locked forward, unshaken. "All right, let's make this interesting," Liam announced, speaking loud enough for the crowd to hear. He started pacing back and forth in front of the guard, imitating the stiff, precise walk of a soldier on duty. Each step was exaggerated, his knees lifting too high, his arms swinging wildly. The laughter from some corners of the crowd grew louder, but it was mixed with scattered sighs from others who clearly didn't approve. Among those watching was a man with a camera around his neck who called out, "Mate, you should leave him be. This isn't a game." Liam heard it, but he only smiled in response. "Relax," he said with a wave of his hand. "I'm just having a bit of fun." What Liam didn't realize was that the guards were not just ceremonial figures. They were real soldiers, followed strict rules, and anyone getting too close or interfering with their duties could face an immediate reaction. But right now, Liam's focus was on the video his friends were recording. It's not on the unspoken rules he was breaking. Deciding to push even further, Liam stopped pacing and stood still, directly in front of the guard again. He raised his hand and slowly waved it in front of the soldier's eyes, keeping it close but not touching. "How about now? Nothing?" he asked, his tone half challenging, half teasing in the crowd. A couple with young children decided to walk away, not wanting their kids to see what they felt was disrespect. A few others shook their heads while some tourists leaned forward, curious to see what would happen next. The palace security officer, who had been watching quietly from a short distance, adjusted his position to be closer. He didn't step in yet, but his eyes stayed locked on Liam's movements. Liam's friends laughed nervously. Fun was still there for them, but a hint of tension had started creeping into their voices. One of them muttered, "Do you think he'll actually move?" Another replied, "I don't know, but I kind of want to see." Feeling like he had the stage, Liam decided to add a bit of mock commentary for the video. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, speaking to the camera like a reporter, "here we have the unshakable, unbeatable, unmoving, what do they call them? The Queen's Guard?" He bowed theatrically toward the soldier, then straightened up with a smirk. At that moment, a tourist standing nearby tried one more time to warn him. "You're going to regret this," the man said calmly. Liam looked at him for a second and laughed. "I'll be fine," he replied. "They're not allowed to move." It was a sentence spoken with too much confidence, built on nothing more than internet rumors and travel myths. He stepped even closer. Now dangerously close to crossing the guard's boundary. His voice dropped into a fake whisper again. "No, if you just blink once, I'll leave you alone," he said with a grin. The soldier's expression didn't change. Not a blink. Not a twitch. The crowd's energy was changing. The playful curiosity was now mixed with a quiet anticipation. People seemed to sense that the invisible line was about to be crossed. And whatever happened next would not be part of a comedy act. The palace security officer took one step forward, ready to intervene if necessary. His eyes left Liam. Nearby, a woman holding a London guidebook leaned toward her husband and whispered, "I think he's pushing it too far." Her husband nodded, his camera still in his hand but no longer filming. But Liam was still lost in the idea of getting a legendary reaction on camera. He started imitating a marching drumbeat with his mouth, walking in place in front of the guard. Then he froze suddenly, putting his hands behind his back and leaning forward, as if inspecting the guard's uniform. "Wow," he said loudly. "Look at this detail. Amazing stitching work. Someone give this man a sewing award." His friends chuckled, though it was clear their laughter wasn't as confident as before. A couple of them exchanged quick glances, as if silently asking each other whether this was still harmless or starting to cross into dangerous territory. And still. "All right," he said, lowering his voice, but keeping his grin. "Let's try one last trick." He lifted his hand again, pretending to take an invisible hat off the guard's head, then mimed putting it on his own. The crowd's reaction was instant. A ripple of uneasy murmurs passed through the onlookers. Some even took a step back. Sensing that something was about to happen, the guard, up until now perfectly still, made the smallest movement, just enough for those paying close attention to notice. His stance shifted slightly, his boot pressed more firmly into the ground. For the trained eye, it was a signal that his patience was almost at its limit. The palace security officer straightened his back, his focus sharpening. He knew exactly what that shift meant. The crowd, although unaware of military cues, could still feel the tension growing thicker. Liam, however, was too focused on his friends' cameras to notice anything. He looked into one of the phones and said, "I told you, nothing gets to them. This guy is a rock." Took a small step forward, his shoes now nearly touching the guard zone. The moment had arrived, though Liam didn't yet realize it. He thought he was still in control of the situation, but in reality, he had just stepped deep into the guard's no-go zone. And in the world of the royal guards, that was the final line. The laughter, the mockery, the crowd, all of it was about to change in the blink of an eye. The air around Buckingham Palace seemed to grow heavier. The crowd that had gathered was quieter now, as if everyone sensed something was about to happen. Liam stood only inches away from the royal guard, grinning for the cameras completely. Unaware that his playful game was about to take a very sharp turn, the guard's eyes, fixed forward all this time, remained locked in place. But there was a firmness in his stance now that hadn't been there before. The toes of his shiny black boots pointed straight ahead, his rifle perfectly balanced at his side. To most people, it still looked like complete stillness, but to those who understood the discipline of a soldier, this was the moment before action. Liam leaned in again, his voice light and teasing. "You must be bored standing here all day," he said, tilting his head in exaggerated curiosity. A few giggles came from the back of the crowd, but they were nervous now, not carefree. His friends, still filming, shifted on their feet. They could feel the shift in atmosphere, though none of them dared to interrupt. Then, without warning, it happened. The guard's boots slammed against the pavement with a sound so loud and sharp that it made several people in the crowd jump. The sound echoed off the palace walls, cutting through the chatter and laughter in an instant. Liam, startled, stumbled backward a step, his grin faltering for the first time. Before he could even process what had happened, the guard took a powerful step forward, his rifle still at his side, but his voice suddenly booming with command. "Stand back from the Queen's Guard." The words were delivered with such force and authority that they seemed to shake the air. The guard's voice carried far beyond the small group, drawing the attention of people across the courtyard. Some froze in place, others instinctively stepped back. Liam's eyes went wide, his mouth opening slightly as if to say something. But no words came out. His friends, who had been laughing moments earlier, lowered their phones slightly there, expressions shifting from amusement to shock. One of them whispered under his breath, "Oh, mate, you've done it now." The crowd broke into a mix of gasps and murmurs. Some people looked away, as if embarrassed for Liam. Others watched with a sort of fascinated satisfaction, as though they'd been waiting for this moment all along. The guard didn't linger. After delivering the command, he returned to his original position with precision, turning sharply and resuming his stance as if nothing had happened. His face returned to its expressionless mask, eyes fixed straight ahead once more. But the message had been sent loud and clear. Boundaries had been crossed. He was not going to let them be ignored. Liam stood there, his heart pounding in his chest. For a brief moment, he wasn't sure what to do. He glanced at his friends, who looked back at him with raised eyebrows. "That was tense," one of them said quietly. Liam forced a weak laugh, but it didn't reach his eyes. The adrenaline rush that had fueled his boldness just minutes earlier was now replaced with something else, embarrassment. From the edge of the crowd, a man in a tour guide's uniform called out, "Told you they'd react if you went too far." His tone wasn't angry, but it carried the weight of someone who'd seen this play out many times before. Liam gave him a small nod, though he didn't really know what to say. Nearby, a mother whispered to her teenage son, "See? That's why you respect them." The boy nodded quickly, his eyes still wide from the sudden display of authority. Liam tried to play it off. "Well," he said with a nervous chuckle, "guess we got the reaction we came for." But his voice lacked the confidence it had earlier. He glanced down at his shoes, then back at the guard, who remained still, as if the entire exchange had been just another part of his shift. His friends checked the videos they'd recorded. "It's all on camera," one of them said, showing Liam the clip. The video started with his mockery and ended with the guard's sudden stomp in command. Watching it back so soon made Liam's cheeks burn. A moment, it had felt like a bit of harmless fun, but seeing himself on screen, acting the fool in front of a professional soldier, felt different. A few people in the crowd were still talking about what they'd just seen. "I've been here 3 times, one man said to his companion, "and I've never seen a guard break stance like that. He must have really crossed the line." His companion nodded. "That's the thing, those guards won't react unless they absolutely have to." He pushed it too far. Liam felt all the eyes on him. He had been the center of attention when the crowd was laughing, but now the attention carried a different weight. It was no longer admiration for his boldness, it was judgment. He stepped back from the guard's post, putting some distance between himself and the soldier. The crowd began to disperse a little, the energy slowly returning to the usual mix of chatter and camera clicks. But the moment lingered in the air, as if everyone present would remember it for a long time. The palace security officer, who had been watching the whole time, took a few steps toward Liam. He didn't say anything yet, but his calm, steady presence was enough to make Liam's stomach twist. He knew that the game was over, and the fun had turned into something more serious, as Liam moved back toward his friends. He couldn't help but glance one last time at the guard. The man stood there as if carved from stone, giving no sign that the confrontation had ever happened. But Liam knew better. Now he had seen the discipline, the authority, the readiness that lay behind that stillness. In that moment, he realized that the guard wasn't there to entertain tourists. He was there to protect the palace, the traditions, and the history it stood for. And Liam had just learned that lesson in the loudest way possible. Liam was still standing a few feet away from the guard, his heart slowly returning to a normal rhythm, when he noticed the palace security officer walking toward him. The officer moved with a calm, steady pace. There was no rush, no raised voice, but his presence carried authority, the kind of authority that didn't need to shout to be taken seriously. The crowd, sensing what was about to happen, grew quieter. Some people hung back, curious to see how the situation would unfold, while others began drifting away, satisfied that the most dramatic moment had already passed. Liam's friends lowered their phones, tucking them into their pockets. Whatever was coming next didn't feel like something worth laughing about on camera. When the officer reached him, he stopped at a comfortable but firm distance. He was dressed neatly in a dark uniform with a radio clipped to his shoulder, and his eyes held the steady focus of someone who had dealt with countless similar situations. He gave Liam a quick once-over, not to intimidate, but to make sure. He had his full attention. "Sir," the officer began, his voice calm but firm, "I need to have a word with you." Liam nodded quickly, trying to keep his tone casual. "Yeah, of course." The officer tilted his head slightly toward the guard. Liam had been teasing, that what you were doing back there isn't allowed, right? Liam hesitated, feeling a flicker of defensiveness. "I wasn't trying to hurt anyone, just having a bit of fun." The officer's expression didn't change. "I understand you might have thought it was harmless. But the Royal Guards are not entertainers. They're active soldiers, trained to protect this building, the people inside it, and the tradition it represents. When you step into their space or interfere with their duty, it's taken very seriously." The weight of the words sank into the air between them. Liam swallowed, realizing the officer wasn't simply talking about rules, he was talking about respect. The officer continued, "These men and women stand out here for hours in all kinds of weather, maintaining complete discipline. They don't react unless there's a need. When you cross into their boundary, they are trained to respond instantly. And that response isn't for entertainment, it's for security." A few tourists nearby listened quietly, clearly taking mental notes. Liam shifted uncomfortably under the officer's gaze. His earlier confidence, the grinning and joking, felt very far away now. "I'm not going to remove you from the area," the officer said, "but I need you to understand how close you came to that. If you had touched him or refused to step back when ordered, we would have had to escalate this. And yes, that could mean you being escorted away or even facing legal consequences." Liam felt his face grow warm. "I didn't realize it was that serious," he admitted. "That's the problem," the officer replied, his voice still even. "Too many people see the uniform and think it's just part of the show. But it's not. That guard has a real role, a real job, and deserves the same respect you'd give any soldier." Liam nodded, this time with genuine understanding. "I get it now. I really do." The officer studied him for a moment, as if deciding whether the lesson had truly sunk in. Then he said, "I'm going to trust that you'll remember this. Next time you visit her, the next time you see someone else doing the same thing. You can enjoy the sight, take your photos, and appreciate the tradition, but don't cross that line again." "Yes, sir," Liam replied quickly. The officer gave a short nod, then stepped back. His job in that moment was done. As he turned to walk away, Liam noticed that the guard he had teased was still standing perfectly still, exactly as before, as if the entire incident had been just a passing moment in his day. Liam's friends approached him, their expressions a mix of relief and quiet awkwardness. "Well," one of them said, "that could have gone worse." "Yeah," Liam admitted, rubbing the back of his neck. "I didn't think it would turn into all that." One of his friends shrugged. "He kind of asked for it, though." Liam didn't argue. For the first time, he could see the scene from the outside, not as a funny moment for a video, but as a situation where he had ignored clear boundaries. The laughter from earlier now seemed hollow in his memory. The crowd had mostly returned to its normal rhythm. Tourists were taking pictures again, posing near the palace gates, pointing at the guards from a safe distance. The air was lighter, as if the incident had been absorbed into the flow of the day. But Liam carried a weight in his chest, a mix of embarrassment and realization. He turned toward the palace one last time, taking in the sight of its tall white walls and the shining gold accents on the gates. For all the photos and stories he'd seen online, nothing compared to being here in person. And now he thought he'd experienced a part of it that most people never woulda. Direct reminder of what those guards stood for. As he and his friends began walking away, Liam overheard a group of tourists discussing the incident. "I can't believe he got that close," one said. "I wouldn't even try," another added, It's good he got told off. People need to respect the tradition. The words stung a little, but Liam didn't take them as insults. They were simply the truth. He had stepped into the moment thinking only about himself and his friends' amusement. It's not about the meaning of the uniform or the discipline behind it. He made a quiet decision then. Not only would he never do something like that again, but he'd speak up if he saw someone else trying it. He now knew firsthand that the guard's stillness wasn't a weakness to exploit. It was a sign of strength and training. When they reached the corner of the street, one of his friends asked, "Do you think you'll watch the video again?" Liam thought about it. "Yeah," he said slowly, "but not for the reason I thought. It's not going to be a clip I laugh at. It's going to be a reminder," his friend smirked. "Reminder not to mess with soldiers." Liam smiled faintly. A reminder to respect people doing their job, especially when they do it with that much discipline. The group walked on, blending into the stream of tourists heading toward the next landmark. Behind them, the guards remained at their posts, silent, still, and watchful exactly as they had been before. If you want, I can now expand part 5, where Liam's video ends up online and sparks a wave of comments, turning his embarrassment into a widely shared lesson about respect for tradition. It will complete the story's arc and tie everything together. Would you like me to continue with that? Liam and his friends left the palace feeling a little quieter than before. The excitement of the day was still there, but the fun had changed into something more serious. Liam kept thinking about the moment when the guard shouted at him and how real everything had felt. When they got back to their hotel, they all sat down to watch the videos they had taken outside Buckingham Palace. Liam felt nervous as he saw himself on the screen. At first, it was funny him making silly faces, pretending to be a soldier and joking around. But then came the moment that changed everything. The loud stomp of the guard's boot and his firm command telling Liam to step back. Seeing that made Liam's smile fade. It wasn't just a funny video anymore. It was a clear lesson captured on film. His friends looked at the clip too. One said quietly, "You really pushed it too far." Another added that guard handled it so well. "He didn't lose his cool, even when you were being disrespectful." Liam nodded, feeling a bit embarrassed, but also grateful that the guard stayed calm. Without thinking much, one of his friends uploaded the video to social media. It didn't take long before the clip started to get attention. Comments appeared. Quickly, some funny, some serious, and some even a little harsh. People from all over the world saw the video and shared their thoughts. Many viewers said Liam had been foolish to tease the guard. "That's a soldier doing his duty, not a statue to joke around with," one comment read. Another said, "Those guards don't react unless you really cross the line. Lucky you didn't get into bigger trouble." Some people praised the guard for his professionalism. "That man showed amazing self-control. That's respect for the uniform," wrote another viewer. Liam read the comments carefully. At first, some stung a little. He wasn't used to being called out like that, especially online. But as he read more, he began to see the bigger picture. The people commenting weren't just being mean. They were trying to teach a lesson about respect, discipline, and tradition. He shared the video with a few family members back home. His parents sent messages saying they hoped he had learned to be more respectful. His younger sister joked that he would never live this down, but also said she was proud he understood the importance of the lesson. Liam took a deep breath and decided to write a message to go with the video. He wanted to be honest, he said that. He had made a mistake, that he hadn't understood the seriousness of the Royal Guard's role, and that he hoped others would learn from what happened to him. The message quickly gained attention too. People appreciated his honesty and his willingness to admit he was wrong. Some even thanked him for sharing the story because it reminded them to respect others, especially those in service roles. Over the next few days, Liam found himself telling the story again and again. 2 friends, strangers at the hotel, and even a few fellow tourists on the streets of London. But this time, the story was different. It wasn't about the funny prank he had tried. It was about the respect he had learned, about the importance of tradition, and about understanding that some boundaries should never be crossed. When he returned home, Liam kept the video, but looked at it in a new way. It wasn't just a funny moment captured on camera. It was a reminder of a day when he had learned an important life lesson about respect, about discipline, and about what it means to stand strong even when others are trying to provoke you. His experience at Buckingham Palace became a story he told to friends and family, not to boast, but to remind them all that respect for others is something everyone should hold dear. The royal guard's quiet strength and swift response had taught him something he would never forget. And though the video had started as a joke, it ended up becoming a lesson for many, a reminder that some traditions are worth honoring and some lines are meant to be respected, no matter where you are in the world.